Welcome back everyone. My name is Sagar and we are back here with another video. So today is day 197 of our POTD series and today this question name is count the substring and I think GFG just love to give us hard level questions. So this question is looking very simple but it is not because we have to manage the time constraint here. So first of all we are given a binary string and a binary means there is only 0 and 1 present in the string and the task is to calculate the number of substring that have more ones than zeros. So it is a very simple question, right? So you can just use two loops and you will just iterate over all the substring and you can just count how many substring are present that have more number of ones than zeros. So for this example 0 1 1. So this is a string that, so first of all we will check all the strings. So this is our one string and the number of zeros are more, so we cannot count it. Number of one should be greater. So after that, this is our one string. So this string have a number of ones more than number of zeros. So count is one. And after that, this. So count is now two. And after that, we'll check all the substring of length two. So this substring and it have equal number of zeros and ones. So we'll not count it. And after that, we have this. So this have more number of ones. So count is equal to three. And after that, this one. So the whole string it have more number of ones than zeros. So count equal to four. And the answer will be four. Okay. So yeah, and that is brute force approach. We can just use two loops, but that approach will not get accepted because you can see constraint here are 10 to the power 5. So you have to optimize it and you have to do it in off and time. So how can you do it? So first of all, the brute force approach, we will just optimize using the brute force approach. So the first approach that was coming to my mind is cadence algorithm because that is something similar that we have to find the maximum sum and we have to remove all the negative values and consider this 0 as our negative value. And how can we remove all the negative values? So first of all we have to count all the string. So see that thing, we have some string here 0 1 1 and we know that we can in our cadence algorithm what we have to do, we have to check all the maximum sum from our 0. So it is something like cadence algorithm. I am not directly approaching to that. So first of all, see that we will what we will do, we will just store all the subarrays that are from starting point and we will just count all the zeros, all the subarrays, all the substrings that have more number of zero, more or equal number of zeros. And what we will do after checking all the substrings, we will just remove that substring which have more number of zeros in it. So first of all, what we will do, first of all, we'll check all the substring with this starting point. So all the substring that have starting point as zero. So that is this one, and this. So there are three substrings that are starting from this point and they have their different ending point. So here we can see what we can see. This substring. So this substring have more number of zeros than more number of ones. So we just have to remove this count. So first of all, we will get the whole count. The whole count will be n. That you can see the total number of substring that are starting from this point. So total number of substrings that are starting from this point, how many number of substring total substring are present that are starting from 0? So there are n substring present, or we can say n minus I substring present. So I will also tell you why there are n minus I substring present. So there are n substring present, right? And I is here 0. So 0 here, and we can see this is our generalized formula. How many total substring are present that are starting from this ith index and almost total substring. So you can see this is starting from 0. So first substring, this is our second, that is also starting from 0, and this is third. So 3 minus 0, that is here 3. Okay, so this is total and we have to now minus some number of substring. And how can we minus? So we also have to maintain some minus. So this will be here minus some substrings. Okay, I think we have to minus here. So minus some substring, I will just call it minus minus. So actually I also didn't just get the approach here and I just have to also refer to the hint and try something out. So first of all, I am just explaining you the approach that is given in the editorial. Remember that thing. So just we have to just minus this thing, that is the number of zeros. So substrings that have more or equal number of zeros, because we only have to consider the substring that have more number of ones. So this is the total count, that is the total number of substring that we can have, and we have to reduce the number of substring that have number of zeros equal to or greater than 1. Okay, so we have to minus that substrings. So what are those substring that have number of zeros greater than or equal to 1? So you can see in this substring this have more number of zeros, so we have to remove this, so it will be 1 here. So it will be 1 here, and in this substring also it have number of zeros equal to 1. So we also have to remove this. So we will remove this one and this one, and in this substring we have to, you can see number of ones are more. So we have to minus 2. So the minus value equal to 2 here, okay? And this will be equal to 1. So that means, so how this is equal to 1? So what this 1 will represent? That means all the substrings that are starting from this ith index. So all the substrings that are starting from this ith index are 1 according to our answer. So answer for our substring, answer means that our number of ones are greater than number of zeros. So all the substrings that are starting from 1, starting from this ith index, the count of substring that are starting from ith index is 1. So that substring is only 0, 1, 1. So this is the only substring that is starting from our ith index, that is 0th index, and have number of more ones than zeros. So after that we will just increase our I. So I will be here now, and let me just show you. So 0, 1, 1, and our I is here now. So we have to check all the substring that are starting from this index. So this is 1, this is 2, and how can we find the total number of substring? So total number of substring is n minus I. That is here 3 minus 1. So this is one index, okay? So 3 minus 1 means this is here 2 number of total substring. Okay, so 2 number of total substring are present here, and after that we have to also minus some values. So how many values now we have to minus? So first of all, this was our previous value of minus, and now we have to manipulate this value to change according to this new value, okay? So if it is 0, then we have to manipulate it something differently, and if it is 1, then we have to change it differently. So first of all, I will just write the basic code for this, pseudo code for this. So we have to start from our 0 to n. So I will also write here n as dot length, and we are starting from 0 to n, and what we are doing. So I hope this is the enough to write this for loop. So first of all, we are starting from one index, and every time what we are doing, we are adding some value to our answer, and answer plus equal to, okay, that is a bad handwriting. So answer plus equal to this value. So this value is what it is. So this is the total number of substring that we can have from our ith index, and minus means we are subtracting the number of substring that have more or equal number of zeros, okay? So that is the thing we have to do. So first of all, we are checking all the substring that are starting from ith index and are valid according to our condition, okay? So after that we will increase our index. So that means we are doing this thing. So after that we are checking all the substring from this point ahead, and we are getting all the valid substring according to our condition. So we will just do the same thing. So n minus I is equal to 2, and now we have to minus all the number of substring that have more number of zeros, okay? So we can see there are no thing like that, and we just have to reduce this 0, okay? So after that we just have to add 2. So what we will do, we will also create an answer here. So initially it is 0, okay, it is long value, and it is 0 L. And after that we have to add what value? So we will add n minus I minus this minus. So this minus will represent what? It will represent the number of substring which have more or equal number of zeros than ones. So we will just have to add n minus I. So this n minus I is the total number of substring, and we have to reduce this minus, and this minus is, now you know it, and we have to make it long. So we will just multiply it with 1l, okay? And after that, so how can we calculate our minus? So we just have to calculate our minus every time. But if this is not the thing, what you will do, what you can do? So if you don't know how you can update this minus, so you will just iterate in this string. So you will just start from this ith point, and you will check all the subarrays, all the substrings that have more number of zeros than ones, okay? You can just do this thing by yourself. You can just run here another loop to check how many number of zeros, how many number of substring are present with more number of zeros, okay? So you can just do this thing, but we just have to don't do that, because that time complexity will be of n square, and we don't have to write n square approach. So how can we optimize it? We have to use here dp, and I will show you how. So first of all, how can we use here dp? So we have to store how many number of, so initially we are at here. So initially we are at this point, so we will just consider this thing, and I will show you how we will update it. Okay, so we are at 0, 0 1 1, and we are checking from this point. Okay, we are checking from starting. So what can we store in our DP? How many number of substring are present with more number of 0, right? So how can we store it? So this is here our starting point. So what we will do, we will just store what we have to do in our cadence algorithm. We have to check if it is a negative value or positive value, and we will check if it is 0 or 1. So if it is a 0, so we will just start our count. So this is our count that will start from 0. So if it is a 0, if it is a 0 value, then we will just reduce it. So if it is a 0, then we will say count minus minus. So count will be equal to minus 1. And now we will see if the count is less than 0. So if our count is less than 0, that means we just encountered more number of zeros than 1. Okay, I hope now you understand this thing. This is a very simple thing. So I will also write this thing because we have to create our DP. So DP will be, I think it should be also long DP, and it is of size n. So I will just cut it from here. So long DP it is. Okay, I think the indentation is wrong here. Okay, anyway. So first of all, we are doing this thing. I have to correct it. Okay, so first of all, we are at here. And now what we have to do? We have to check either this is a 0 or this is a 1. So if it is 0, then we will just reduce it. So how can we reduce? So I equal to 0 to n. And if s dot char at I equal to 0. So if it is 0, then we will say count minus minus. Okay, we also have to take a count here. So I will just create a count that will be initially 0. So else if it is a 1, then we will say count plus plus. So that is a basic thing. This we have to do this thing in so many algorithms, right? So if it is a 0, then we will reduce our count, and it is a minus 1. That means we just encountered some number of substrings. So this can be also one substring, and this can be also some number of substring. So suppose this is here 0, and suppose 0 1 0. So in this example, so if we encountered 0, so that means count will be equal to minus 1, and if we encountered 1, so count will increase, so it will be again 0, and after that we encounter again 0, so it will be again minus 1. So that means at this point we encountered this 0 also and this also. So that is the same pattern, but we are currently not storing this one because that is not starting from this point. We are only storing the thing that is starting from our zeroth pointer, zeroth index. Okay, so in our DP, we will initially store all the values, that all the substrings, number of substrings that are starting from this index. Okay, so just remember that thing. So initially we are storing all the number of substring. So let me just write what we are storing in our DP. So in any DP value, we are storing number of substring with more or equal, with more or equal. So you just understand this thing, greater than or equal means more or equal, more or equal number of zeros. Okay, so we are storing on number of substrings with more or greater than or equal number of zeros. Okay, so currently we will not store this thing, and that means we are only storing this value. So that means initially we hit this one. So initially we hit this one. So that means count will be equal to minus 1. So add index of our DP minus 1. So suppose there is some index in our DP that is minus 1. So we will increment our count. That this is the pattern that we hit in our array. So that means we have to store the values according to the pattern. So if it is minus 1, that means we have to store it at in the minus 1, at the index minus 1. Okay, and if we hit at if here we have more 0, that means this will be equal to minus 2. So that means at index minus 2. So in our DP at index minus 2, we have to increment the value, and if we have one more here, so at this point 0 0 1, so it will be again minus 1, because when we hit 1, we will just increment our count, है ना? So this will be again minus 1. So that means in this, okay, let me just make it clear. 0, okay, I have to write it again. So count will be initially 0, and we have the substring as 0 0 1 1 and 0. So suppose this, and this is our DP, which have somehow it have negative values. Okay, so just consider that it have some negative values. So the maximum minimum value can be, so if all the numbers are zero, so it is 0 here, so it will be -1 here, -2, -3, -4, -5. So the minimum value of it is, minimum value of DP is -5. So -5 here, -4, -3, -2, -1, and 0. And if all the values in our string are 1, 1, 1, so then it will be from 0, it will be 1, it will be 2, 3, 4, 5. So maximum value will be 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. And in this case, the value is 0, 0, 1, 1, and 0. So initially is the initial the value of count is 0, and when at this index, so we hit 1, so we hit 0. So at 0 we have to reduce our count, so count will be reduced and count will be equal to -1 now. So count is -1, so that means we hit the pattern from starting point this, we hit some pattern that have more number of 1, that have one more number of 0. Okay, so in this case we have one more number of 0 than 1. So I hope now you understand this. So the pattern in which we have one more number of 0. So remember that thing, one more number of 0 means 0. So number of 0 is one extra than number of 1. So 0 and 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1. So in all these patterns, we have one extra number of 0 than 1. So you can see two zeros are here and 1, 1 here. 1, 1 is here. And three zeros are here and two ones are here. So I hope now you understand the pattern, what -1 means. So -1 means there is one more number of 0 than 1. And if you don't understand it, just rewind the video and listen it more carefully. So if we have -1 here, so we will increment here. So that means in this pattern we have one substring that is starting from this point. Okay, so just that thing is also important, that thing is very important. We are checking all the substring from starting point this 0. So we just hit this, so that means there is one string which have this pattern. And after that, when we hit this 0, so our count will be equal to, so our count will be now equal to -2. So that means we hit a pattern where the number of zeros are 2 more. So we just have to increment it here at the -2 index. And after that, when we hit 1, so we hit 1 again, and that means count will be increased. So it will be -1. So -1 means that we hit another pattern. So we again hit a pattern that have one extra number of zeros than 1. So you can see there are two zeros and 1, 1. So that means we will increment this index. So 2. And always every time we are just checking from this starting point. So there are, let me just make it clear. So -1 means there are two substrings that are present in our string that is starting from this point and which have one extra number of ones. So this is this string. So this is one string which have one extra number of 0, and this is this string which have one extra number of 0. So there are two number of strings, and -2 represent there is one string that is starting from this point and which have two extra number of zeros. So it is this. So I hope now you understand it, what we are storing in our DP. And after that, when we are here, so we will just increment it and it will be 0. So that means there is one string that have same number of zeros than 1. So we will increment here. And after that, we will be again here. So after this, there is a -1. So that means there will be total of 3 substrings that are present in our string that is starting from this point and which have one extra number of zeros. So it is this one extra number of 0 than 1, this pattern that have two zeros and 1, 1, and this whole string that have two number of zeros. Okay, three number of zeros and two number of ones. So I hope now you understand this, what we are storing in our DP. And this is the thing that we need to make this minus value. So where is it? Okay, this is the thing that we need to make our minus value, because from our starting point, what we are doing from our starting point. So I hope now you understand it. What do we need? So we need this values. So that means there are some number of zeros that have. So there are some number of values, some number of strings that we have to remove to make our valid string. So suppose for this example, we are doing the same algorithm. So from 0, 0, 1, 1, 0. So we have to start from this point. Okay. So we have. Okay, let's just wait and write this thing. So if our count is lesser than, and okay, let me just explain it first. So this is the string that is starting from this point, so we have to check all the number of string and how many total number of strings will be present. So n minus I. Okay, so I is initially 0, so there will be n, that means 1 2 3 4 5. So there will be 5 of total substring that are starting from this point. So 1 2 3 and 4 and 5. So there are total of 5 substring, right? But now we have to remove some number of substring because our formula is okay, just wait, n minus I minus some minus values, and this minus value represent the number of substring that have more zeros than ones. Okay, so what is it? So we have to minus some values, and that will represent, so I will create a variable here minus. So how we will maintain this value? So first of all, we will check this thing. So we will check this array and we will just get the value. So in this array, in this substring, so in this substring, more number of zeros are present, so we have to remove it. And in our second substring, we also have to remove it because there are more number of zeros. In our third one, there are again more number of zeros. In our fourth one, we have equal number of zeros, and in our fifth one, we have more number of zeros. So that means if, here I will write, if count is lesser than or equal to 0. So if count is lesser than 0, that means it will be minus 1 here, minus 1 somewhere, and minus 1 means there is more number of zeros. And even if it is equal to 0, so if it is equal to 0, that means there will be equal number of, in this case, equal number of zeros and equal number of ones. So that means still in this case we have to remove the substring. So that means for all the substring that are starting from 0, our minus value will be equal to 5. So 5 minus 0 minus 5. So that means 0. So for all the substring that are starting from 0, will have 0 number of our valid substring according to this condition. I hope now you understand this. So I will say here minus plus plus. Okay, that is the thing. So if count is less than equal to 0, so that means there will be more number of zeros in any substring. And after that, now we have to update these values in our DP. So we will just use these values in our DP, and we will create our minus value for our next interval. That is this one. And in our example, so we will just start our next interval from this point. So our next interval will be this and this one and this. So there will be 4 number of total substrings. Okay, so we have to maintain this value, we have to maintain this array, but we know our array cannot contain our negative indices. So what we will do, so the maximum value will be, the minimum value is 5, the minimum value is minus 5, है ना? And so how can I explain this? So just keep that thing straight in mind. We cannot have negative values. So what we will do, we will consider this minus 5 as 0. Okay, so this minus 5 is 0. So that means this minus 4 will be 1. And that means we are incrementing all the values by 5. And this 5 will be considered as 10. Okay, so this index will be 10. And that means we are just doubling the values. So we will just double the size of our array. So in this case, we have 5 length, and this is the 5 length, but we also need negative indices, so we will just double the length of our array, and we will just consider this thing, our negative value will be considered as 0. So what we will do, I will just change the indices here. So this will be 0 1 2 3 4, and I think here it is 5. And let me just check it again. So this is here minus 2. So 0 means, so 0 is here means that means we have equal number of zeros and equal number of ones. So it will be considered as our n. So 5 will be here. And let me just clear it. So 5 will be here, and 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And after that, we will have 4, 3, 2, 1, and 0. So I hope now you understand this. 5 means we have 5 is equal to n. So that means we have to check here not for 0, we have to check for n. And for that, our count should also start from n. So I hope now you understand this thing. So if you don't, let me just make it more clear. So first of all, our count is equal to n. So it will be here initially 5. So initially the value of count is 5, and currently the this ith value is 0. So if it is 0, then count will be reduced and count will be equal to 4. So we will be at here this 4 index, and we will just increment the value. So 4 means, so 4 is less than 1 less than the number of length. So 4 is 1 less than n. So that means there is one more 0. Okay, so that is how we can just maintain this. So 4 means there is one, 4 is considered as -1, right? And -1 means there is one more 0 than number of 1. Okay, so we will just create an array of not n length, but with 2 into n plus 1 length. And that plus 1 is because for the case 1 1 1 1 1. And if we are starting from 5, then it will be here 6 7 8 9 and 10. So 10 should be also an index, and that is why we are creating a length of 11. Okay, because 0 to 10 is 11 length. And that is the thing, we just created this thing. So after this value, I think I have to move this. Let me just copy it from here. Okay, so now we have to make changes with this thing. So I will just remove this, and I will also copy this, because this will be our second value. Okay, so this is our second value that we have to check. So this is a subarray that we already removed. So here was a 0 that we have to subtract from our minus value. So initially the minus value is 5 and n is also 5. So now we have to check for this n minus I minus 1 minus value. So every time we are increasing minus, and we also have to store it in our DP. So how we were storing in our DP, we just have to do DP of this current count plus plus, and that is it. So that is how we are creating our DP. And after that we have this answer, and we also need this minus value. So initially it is already initialized. So at this point, so let me just try run this thing. So initially this value will be 5, and that is because of all the zeros, because in this all the 5 substrings have more number of zeros. So initially the minus value will be equal to 5, and we will just add 0 to our answer. And after that now we have to change it. We don't have to use here a loop, so we will change according to our value of character, either it is a 0 or 1. So if it is a 0, then we will change differently, and if it is a 1, then we will change differently. Okay, so I will just write here 1, and so here is our case. Let me just zoom it here. So that is the thing. So we just have to now start from this point. So we have to start from this point, and n minus I means there will be 5 minus 5 minus 1. That means 4 total subarrays, and there are 1 2 3 4, and we have to remove. Okay, I will just write it down here. So there will be 4 total of substrings. So this is our first substring, this is second, this is third, and this is fourth. And we just have to ignore this one also. So we have to remove this one, and this was starting from this. So it was we have to remove all the substrings that were starting from the this previous 0 index, and we have to remove all the substrings. That means this one and this one also, and all the substrings that were making part in this DP, because now we have to use DP to make our new minus value. So we just have to manipulate our DP and this minus value. So first of all, there are these 4 substring, and we have to not consider this one. So this will be included in our minus value. So minus value will be 1. We don't have to include this one also, because 0 and 1 are equal. So minus value will be 2, and we also don't have to we have to include this one, and we don't have to include this one, because in this one number of 1 and 0 are equal. So minus value should be equal to 3, and previously the minus value was 5. So how can we do this? We have to make from 5 to 3. and because we have a 0, so when we have a 0 we have to obviously remove this 0 because it was starting from any point and we just ignored it. Okay, so if we have a 0, okay, so at any point, so this is our ith point. So initially we are at this, so we are at this point and we just added 5, here it was 5 minus 0 minus 5, so we just added 0 value to our answer, and after that now we have to manipulate our dp to get ready for our second value. Okay, so next time, currently our minus value is 5 and we have to update it to become 3. Okay, so it is here 0 value, so we will just work in this else block, and it is here 0 value and the value of minus equal to 5. So let me just write it here more clearly. So current character is 0, so it is here, we are here, and minus value is initially 5 and we have to make it, so we have to make it 3. Okay, so that is the thing we have to do, because the next time we can see we just have to remove 3 subarrays, that's 3 substrings. Okay, so how can we make changes in our this value to make our 5 to 3? So in this, so first of all, in this dp, what we are storing in this dp, we are storing number of substrings that are starting from any point, and that are starting from this point and have number of zeros. Okay, and have a substring as more number of zeros, substring with more number of zeros. So there are these 5 values, that means there will be 5 substring which have that 3 means there, that means there means one substring which have more number of zeros, 2 more number of zeros. Okay, sorry, 3 more number of zeros, and that was I think 2 more number of zeros, so that was this pattern. Yeah, and so how can we make the changes in here? So first of all, we know that we just removed this 0, so we have to what we have to do initially, so we have to do minus minus minus, so minus value will be reduced by 1, so from 5 it will be 4, है ना? And after that what we have to remove, so we just removed this value. It was starting from this point and it was starting from this point and it was ending here, so we just removed one value because we are at 0. So whenever we are whenever we are at 0, so first of all we have to remove this value, and this value may be starting from this point, so it value may be starting from this point and it may be starting from our previous value, so it may be taking part in this subarray or also this array, and we also have to now update our dp array. And so first of all, what we have to do now, we have to minus more values, because this dp reducing this value can solve our problem. So suppose we have 0011, so first we are including this value in this, so now we have to remove this one. So according to this, so whenever we are removing this only value, then we will remove first of all this subarray, this substring will be removed, and this substring will be also removed, because now this one is a valid one. Okay, and you can also see here, whenever we are removing this 0, then we are removing this substring, and we also have to remove this substring. So that means we have to also reduce the number of substring that are present in this subarray, and that will be at this okay, we also have to maintain an index here, so index will be initially n, so n means more number of zeros and number of 1 are equal, so initially we are at here, and we have to reduce the number of from our dp index. So that means we just removed, in this example itself we can see this is the same example. So whenever we are so initially we are at here. Okay, and now for our next value we have to update our dp according to this value, and at this value this is a valid substring. So if this is a valid substring, this one is a valid substring, then we have to not consider this in our dp. So this was previously considered in our dp because it is also starting from this point, so we also have to remove it from our dp. And how can we remove? First of all, we will just reduce our counter. First of all, we will just reduce our counter with one value, because we know that this 0 singly will be removed. Okay, so that is why we are just doing here minus minus minus, one time minus. Okay, and after that now we have to check our dp, and we have to reduce the number of substring that it is taking part in. So suppose it is have here more example 0011. So in this substring also, it is taking part to make it an invalid string, invalid substring. And whenever we are seeing this only, so this is a valid, but including this zero, this is invalid. Okay, 1 2 3 4, yeah. So this is a invalid, including this zero. So now we have to remove the number of invalid substring that it is taking part in. So I hope now you understand with this example. So in this example, this zero is making two strings invalid. That is this string and this string. So only this zero is the reason to make both of these string invalid. And we just remove this thing. If we are removing this zero, then this substring and this substring is now valid, and you can also see here, and that is the number. So here we can see there are two numbers, but the number is previously stored in our dp index. So now what we have to do, so as we also removed our zero, so that means the number of zero will be removed, and then the number of zero will be reduced. So that means in this, so we are at currently 5. So that means in this case, so here in 4 means, that means one more number of zero is present. So that means in this case we have to reduce it. So first of all we will reduce the index, and dp on dp this updated index we have to reduce the value. So I hope now you understand this. So it will be not here 3, it will be here 2, because on 4 what we are representing, that there will be one extra number of zeros than 1. And I hope now you understand this. And whenever we are hitting 1, so let me make it clear, this is a total mess here. So we just updated the value, and we also make it from 5 to 3, and at next time we are just doing 4 minus 3, that is, I have to write here 5 minus 1 minus 3. So it is here 5 minus 4. That means we are adding one value. And what is the subarray that we are adding? We are adding this subarray. So 0 1 1. That is the count of subarray which we are adding in our answer. And after that our I will be increased and we will be here. So we are also, okay, let me just first write it. So we are just removing all these, and now the number of substrings will be 3, and we are at this point. So at this point, and now we have to update our dp for our next value. And again we are at 0, so we will again do the same thing, that the thing we are explaining here. And after that, when we are hitting 1, so at this point this is a valid, and this is valid, and this is also valid. So the count of this will be 0, so count of our minus will be equal to 0. So that means we have to minus only 0 values, and all these are valid. And after that we are at here, so we are at here. So we are at this index, and we have only two subarrays. So when we have only two subarrays, then this is valid, but this is not valid. So count should be 1. So whenever we are at 1, so our minus value should be increasing. Okay. So whenever we are at 1, our count value should be increasing. So we have to add something to our minus value. And I will see what thing we have to add. So what do we have to add? And we are at 1, and for our next time we have to remove this one, है ना? So we are at some 1 and we have to remove this. So obviously whenever we are removing 1, so that can be a case where number of zeros are more. You can see in this example. So what we have to do? So first of all, we can see, okay, from this point we have to make our dp array, and that means there is a one more number of string, two more number of strings, and I okay, let me just do it in this example. So in this dp array, first of all, what we have to do, we are removing 1. So we are removing 1. So that means 1 will be removed, and that means on next index. So we are at some currently at this index. Okay. So we are at this index, suppose, and that represent there is one extra number of 0. So suppose in this example 0 0 1. So we are at here. So there is this pattern. That means there will be more number of 0, and we are at one more. We have one more. Okay. So we have more 1, and that means there will be 1. So there will be one lesser number of zeros. So we have to move to next index, because at next index we will have this pattern. That means there will be one less number of zero, or we can say there will be here we have 0 0 1, and at next point we have 0 0 1 1. All right. And yeah, so that is the thing. We have one more number of 1. Okay. So at next point we have to First of all, index plus plus at next point, first of all, we have to reduce the value because at this point we have one more one. So what we will do, dp of this index value minus minus, and now we just have to add that value to our minus value. So if you don't understand this, then just do me one favor, that you have to just dry run this example. So this is the example, you just have to dry run. So 0 0 1 1 0, because initially no one is taking part. So all these five substring are not taking part, and after that we are just adding some substring. So in this example all the cases will be covered, and just dry run this once, and if you don't understand it, you will just understand how we are manipulating this dp array. So that is the main concept, and that is it. Every time we have to just reduce some values in our dp because we are moving ahead. So extra we are moving ahead, so number of sub arrays will be obviously lesser, number of substring will be obviously lesser, right? So that is the thing, and at last we just have to return our answer. So I think it is covered. We are increasing the index. So at next index, we have one extra number of one, and we have to also reduce the value. And I think that is it. So let me just check. Okay, so this is our complete algorithm, and that is it for today. You will just get this solution in our DSA repository, and if you just understand this approach a little bit, then do subscribe to our channel. Only 20% of the viewers are subscribing to our channel. 80% are just viewing and dropping the video out. So do subscribe to our channel, everyone, and just like the video if you understand this approach completely, and dislike if you don't understand it, just like the previous day. So thank you for watching.